Hi, this is Nancy at Notions, and we have a vendor visitor, actually more like a vendor slash designer slash inspirer slash teacher kind of a person. This is Lia Griffith. Lia Griffith has been very popular on YouTube and her channels doing paper flowers, but it's more than just paper flowers. I like that Lia told us that she grew up in a DIY lifestyle.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, because your parents were starving artists.
They were.
We all need those.
So we were DIY not because, oh, it's the cool thing to do, because it wasn't back then. It was kind of necessity. And I was saying earlier, I sort of hated being a DIY family, but now I love it. I love that that's...
Because now you're one of the cool kids.
Oh, right, exactly. I was ahead of the curve.
Ahead of the curve. That's a good idea. All right, so what we're going to do is going to show you some of the products that we have here at Notions, and it's going to involve some of Lia's crepe paper, which she's going to tell you why this crepe paper is so special, and then a whole new set of tools that she has teamed up with Fiskars for. So everything that you need, not just for making these paper flowers, but for making things for your whole entire home decor and gifting type stuff.
And weddings.
And weddings, yeah. Well, that's kind of
Events.
sort of where it really started. I mean, the whole idea of the paper, you know, dun, dun, da, da, the paper flowers and stuff like that. I did love that one of the sales reps asked during the meeting, and maybe we'll bring this up a little bit later, is the idea of coloring them. And I love the idea of taking this and coloring them. And I'm a seamstress myself, so when you said that you've made, how many, 8 paper flower dresses?
I've actually made about 65 of them by now.
Entire like ball gown type
and
dresses?
worn on runways. I've made them for events. You can find a video where 2 of them are on my site that I made out of crepe paper. I'll probably be making more crepe paper dresses soon. So
all right, I love that idea. Yeah. I love that. So when we come back, Lia is going to take you through the process of making paper flowers.
So in making crepe paper flowers, we have worked with Fiskars to pull together some of the tools that we use every single day. And I wanted to give you kind of a sneak peek, or just a little bit of a peek of what we do use. Our 4 tools that we use the most are probably these right here. And this is the scissor. So these scissors have the non-stick blade, so it makes it really great for cutting layers of crepe paper. This one is my go-to all the time. And then the other scissor that I use a lot are these smaller scissors. They look like kid scissors, but they're not. They're very, very sharp, and they have a tiny point. And that's where we can get in there and create these very tiny little fringes when we want to make the insides of our crepe paper flowers. So to me, those two go together. We also use these needle nose pliers with the wire cutter inside, and I like these because it's a one tool that you can do several things with. So I always keep those on hand. And then the last tool, this is a new tool that we just created this year, and this one actually will curl your paper. It's a simple tool, but the way that it fits in your hand, and it's just so easy to use with your thumb, I use this all the time. This one they made especially for us. I also have this mat here that I will use my hot glue gun every day. This catches the glue. I like to keep my surface clean, so this is a great thing to have. And then some of the other scissors that I might use. So this is a 6-blade fringe scissor, and we use these also. I'll show you a little example here. When we're making the centers of the flowers, look how beautifully that cuts. And one of the things I loved about these scissors when they were bringing in samples is that the blades of these are really high quality, and they stay sharp for a long time. We also have a pair of scissors for people who cut a lot. They want this spring. This makes it a lot easier to do bulk cutting. And then another tool that we bring in all the time, even though this is, actually comes from the sewing department, is our pinking shear, and I'll show you why I use that. Oftentimes when I'm making these stamen for the center of my flower, I don't want these blunt edges. They're just not as pretty. So I'll go ahead and just put that pinking shear right on the edge to give it a bit more of a shape. Very simple. Another thing that we made with Fiskars are these templates for crepe paper flowers. Now this one is specifically a rose this one is a puppy, and this one is a peony. But the truth is you could actually mix and match a lot of these templates. What we were looking for is some sort of a stable material that you could use again and again. You could keep it in your craft room. You don't have to cut out paper templates and then lose one or throw them away. They're just a really great way to have a collection of templates. So I'm going to show you how to make the crepe paper peony using these templates. So I have cut most of my petals out and I use these templates, but I'm going to give you an example of how I use them. You'll notice on the templates we have these 3 little marks, and what that means is that that's how you'll want to follow the grain of your crepe paper. So crepe paper, I'll give you a quick view here. Crepe paper is actually that, it is creped. And you can see on this crepe paper these little lines, and that's what makes it stretch. That's what's making it crepey. So the lines are important, especially on something like a leaf, because that's what will give the leaf the shape. So when I cut, I'm going to cut down here just to get that line out of there. Just a little side note, you can actually iron crepe paper as long as you don't put steam on it. So you can see how I'm matching the line, and it's rather than cutting my leaf like this, I'm cutting it this way. And the reason for that, and I'll show you an example, is we want the leaf to have what we call a V-cut. So it has the lines that look almost like a real leaf. So it has those veins of the leaf. And that's why, you know, it's important to really follow these lines. And I'll show you something on a petal too. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that about the width of the pattern. And what I'll usually do is cut straight across. Now, you can use your templates just like I'm doing here, where you hold them right up against the crepe paper, and you can cut along and use it as almost like bumper cars, you know, where you bump your scissors against them. I'm going to flip that around so my grain's going the same direction. I'll just kind of jog that together and then cut around it, and I have one leaf. You can cut more than one layer at a time. I'm cutting 2 here, but I would say you could cut up to 6. And then look at this. I'm going to glue this together, and there's how we get the leaf. Look at that. So easy. So some of these petals, I'll show you one more example here. So here's a petal. I'll show you this one because it's less little jigs. Instead of cutting around, I might need to just cut the shape. I'm going to show you the right way to do it and the wrong way. So the right way is you follow the grain with the grain of the paper. But I'm going to show you just for fun what it looks like when you don't follow the grain. I'll just move right around. Again, you can use a pencil if you want to and just trace that, and then you don't have to use your pattern. These scissors won't go into that groove, but I'll show you what will. Remember, I'm cutting this wrong, so don't do it don't do it the way I'm showing you. I just wanted to show you an example. You can also use your little tiny scissors to get in there. And if I were cutting this for production, I would actually do, I would say 6 layers of these. All right, and then I'll pull it apart and I can trim it up. So this is the wrong way to cut against the grain, and here's the correct way. And you can see the difference there. But let me show you why. So the petals, we use the stretch of the crepe paper to make the shape. And there's my correct petal. And then here's my incorrect petal. And just look which one looks better. It's so much nicer when you use the grain as intended. So I think that's a really important component of using crepe paper. All right, so we have everything cut. I have this piece here. This is my long center piece, and I've pre-cut that. Then I'm going to take my pinking shears and just trim the edge to give it some of that texture. I don't want a blunt edge. Now I could take my little micro scissors and cut that into the sepal if I want to, or I can go ahead and use these scissors, and with 6 blades I'm creating a really beautiful fringe. I'm going to show another little trick that we do sometimes. Oftentimes, to get some additional, I don't know, realness of a crepe paper flower, I'll twist these, but that takes a long time. You can do that if you want to, or you just kind of bundle them up like this and then that gives it a lot more texture, so it's not quite so flat. or you can go back and twist them. I've done both, so it depends on the flower. Okay, now I'm going to take this wire. This is a 18 gauge wire, and it has a paper coating and some padding in there, so it makes a nice big stem. So I usually like to use a low temperature hot glue gun, but you can also use a high temperature hot glue gun. And this one is a very large one. You can use the small mini ones as well. Putting a little bit of hot glue on the end and then just wrapping it. I'll go ahead and add some more glue. I just want to show you guys how simple it is to make a gorgeous flower. Anybody can make these. I have some of my favorite readers and members of my site are the 12-year-olds, you know, the 10-year-olds. I'm telling you, they have no fear. They know how to make crafts, and I feel like this one is one of their favorites, is just making paper flowers. You have to be a little bit careful with the hot glue gun. Low temperature, you don't have to worry quite so much, but I prefer to keep my fingers intact. So to get some shape with this, I would oftentimes curl these, but since I forgot to do that, I'll go ahead and just use my hand and just tamp it down. We want to have things look a bit more natural and not quite so straight. So I have 4 different sizes of petals that go onto this flower. This is actually a piece of green. 4 different sizes of petals, and in this kit, in the little pack, it will actually have the whole tutorial inside of how to make it. And the tutorial that is shown makes this very large, lush crepe paper peony. But you can also make some that are smaller and more delicate, so you can really vary this, which is what I love. I like the flexibility. So I'm going to start with the smallest petals, just for the inside. Give them a little bit of a stretch. And these are so small, I don't really need to curl them, but I'll put just a touch of glue and then start rotating them around the base. So let's talk about crepe paper as I'm making this. So there are actually only 3 manufacturers of crepe paper outside of China and of Mexico. I just recently found the Mexican crepe paper. I knew they were making it, and I found some being sold here in the US. And those places are, there's a manufacturer in America, and then there's one in Germany and Italy. And Germany and Italy are actually the 2 that make the most delicate and beautiful and high-end crepe paper. The rest of them are really made more for kids' crafts. They don't have as much stretch. So I'm going to show you here. One of the things about, this is what we call our extra fine crepe paper, and we're the only ones that actually sell this crepe paper. It's made in Germany. All of the Lia Griffith crepe paper is German. It has 130% stretch, which is a lot. If you look at the Chinese crepe paper or Mexican crepe paper, it probably has more of a, I don't know, like 30, 40, maybe 50% stretch, about like that. So you can see what a difference that makes, having that much stretch, and that's how you get the shapes. We also have the heavy crepe paper, which is like this one here, and this one has 250% stretch. This one has a bit more tooth. I love using all the different types of crepe paper. So this is German, the Lia Griffith brand is German, and then there's also Italian crepe paper, which is also really lovely. But the German crepe paper is the only one that's sold, available for retailers at this point. You can find Italian crepe paper online sold through one distributor. So I'm curling just the tips of these little fingers because, again, I want that shape. I don't want things to stand out and just look like paper. I really want it to look like a flower. All right, let's glue some of those on. And we're just building this flower out. You can add as many of these petals as you want to, as few as you want to. This is where you can really get creative. and just rotate those around, overlapping a bit. When you're using a hot glue gun versus a low temperature, you will want to hold your petals there just a bit longer until the glue cools. And of course, with a hot glue gun are the glue strings. They just sort of go along together. All right, then the next petal is this one, and I also made this one out of the extra fine. I wanted that delicate center. And we'll do 6 of these, even though the pattern it says you can do up to, I think, 15, but I'm just going to do 6 just to show you don't need a whole lot to make something really beautiful. Again, we're going to curl these. This time I think I'm going to make some go the other direction. Give it some variety. You can see how beautiful this crepe paper is. It doesn't tear. Well, it does tear, but not very easily. You can get quite a bit of curl out of it, and it still feels very stable. And I'll just start laying those right around the smaller petals. I went to Germany a few years ago to look at the factory where they were making this crepe paper, and I was really amazed. It's like an old world, craft material that they're bringing back, and these machines are this is an old craft, and the way that they mix the colors and the way they crepe the paper was just so beautiful. It made me feel like our crepe paper was this really high-end sort of vintage material that is now coming back in. And it definitely is a trend. Okay, one more of these. You can see how the flower's already starting to look really beautiful. You could stop there if you want to. I mean, there's a flower right there. But let's do one more layer. So this crepe paper, I'm actually using the heavier crepe paper that I cut. And as you can see, it's a lot toothier, but what I'm going to do is really give it a cup. We want this petal to wrap right around the base. Adding that curl gives it even that extra cup. You can see how it really brings everything around. Looks like I only cut 4 petals. That's all right, we'll make it work. The nice thing about using the heavy crepe paper on the outside of these peonies is that it will give it the structure that it needs. So if you're traveling or if they need to lie down, they'll hold the shape really well. Just placing that right there on the bottom. You can see how it holds the shape. Love those glue strings. Oh, you really do have to hold it into place until it cools. There we go. And again, I'm just overlapping the edges a bit. And there you have a small peony, similar to this one. So the way that I'll finish that out is using some of these green pieces. And I have two different shapes. You can use this shape and this shape both, or you can, mix it up if you want to. I'll just go ahead and use these because I have quite a few. Give them a little curl. I want these to fall away from the base of the peony. So I'll put the dab of glue on the tip. And I'm placing it a little bit there on the wire, and I'll show you why in a second. So you can see how it falls away from the peony. You can also have some of them follow the shape of the peony if you want to. We have glue strings going everywhere right now. I think that the hot glue makes a lot more strings than the low temperature. Yep. So here's 3. I'll add 2 more. And something that I like to teach when I'm talking about crepe paper flowers is you really don't want things to be too uniform. You want things to be a little bit more natural feeling. So I'm not spacing these out perfectly. All right, and then I'll let that cool, and while that's cooling, let me show you how I make a leaf. So for crepe paper flowers, I'll use a combination of a low temperature hot glue gun, and then I also use this tacky glue, and it will depend on the flower and how things are being assembled. But for putting wire between petals and leaves, I always use this turbo tacky glue, and here's my trick. So I'll measure, this is a 24 gauge wire, and it is also paper covered. So I'm going to measure the center of my leaf with my fingers, slide that right into the hole, and then give it a squeeze as I pull it out so that I've coated my wire. And then I'll gently place that right onto the edge, take my other and place it over the top, and then press it down. It's really important that when you're doing this, you make for sure that the V, it's a V. So if you're looking at the leaf, here I'll turn it over for you. If you're looking at the leaf with the wire down, you want it to be a V, not an upside down A, because that's the way that the grain of leaves actually go. And then once you have it glued together and it's dried, you can go ahead and clip your tip. And there you have a leaf. You can stretch the edge a bit if you want to give it some shape. And the beauty of this is you can actually bend the wire to give it that really natural look. So to finish this flower, what I've done is I've cut some of my crepe pieces into these small, I would say 1/2 inch wide. And I'll turn it over so you can see. This is another really great place to use this glue. Let's see, I'm going to get it started. I'm going to show you another trick too. It gets a little bit messy with the glue, but I'm going to wrap it at the base to cover up all of my tips. And then we'll just wrap it down. You don't have to use glue if you're stretching it really nicely, but you can if you really want to make sure it stays into place. I'm putting my leaf in, and I'm going to wrap that in, but I'm going to show you a trick. If you want to glue this whole wrap, one of the things we do, rather than putting the glue on the crepe, just put one fine line down the stem. Okay, maybe it's not so fine, but anyway, put some glue down the stem and then just wrap it right over the top. And if you're careful, you can let your tape do the work so that you don't get your fingers into the glue. And the way that I make sure that I have a really smooth finish is just to stretch the crepe as I go. You can see some of the glue is seeping through, and that's fine. It will always dry clear, so that's nice. And then we'll finish that off. Remember, don't put these in water. They are paper. And there you go. A very simple, small peony flower. What do you think?
There you have it. Flowers by Lia. All right, this was really amazing. There were some tips in there that like really seriously made me drop my jaw. I love how there are these kits. So when you're looking at these kits, this is going to have everything you need in the kit. I'm going to flip it over here. You can see that it has the metal, the styrofoam balls, the tape, everything that you need in there except the scissors and the glue. So there's different
pattern as well.
Okay,
Yes.
pattern and well, and you know what? I do want to open one of these. These are the templates that Lia showed. These are from Fiskars. We're going to talk a smidge more about that. But when I opened this up and I saw, here's all the templates, and then the instructions. So there's very, very detailed instructions. So if you're picking up some of the crepe paper separate, you can use the templates, and here's the instructions. Of course, you can go to Lia's website, find all of her videos. I love, as a retailer, you need to consider these tools as a collection. They would be a fabulous planogram. As a consumer and a crafter, I love that these are all a teal colored handle, which means mommy's tools are teal covered and nobody else gets to touch them. This is a
Yes.
really easy rule. So having this color coordinated, and then there is the other set of products that are really a little bit more for party planning, paper crafting, yep, using different kinds of paper, not crepe paper. I learned that. I thought you could cut the crepe paper with this. I guess you can't. So a lot of different tools, beautiful planogram options. So Lia, thank you very much for coming all the way from Portland, Oregon to Grand Rapids, Michigan to tell our
Anytime.
people a little bit more about your products.